Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian and I am the horror show host. And today I am taking a look at the movies I watched in the month of January 2020. But before we get into it, here's a cool little fact. Today is February 2nd, 2020, and if you reverse those numbers around, it'll still be 0202 2020. So that's pretty cool. And this only happens like every 909 years or whatever. I'm not quite sure on that, but it hasn't been seen in over 900 years. So that's pretty neat. I had done these kind of videos back in January of 2016 on my other channel. They were called Wild Watches, but I figured monthly movies works just as well. And I think it gets the point across much better. So let's take a look into it. The first movie I watched in January 2020 was A Quiet Place. Now, I watched this because there's a sequel coming out, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And I wrote my review for it and hope to have it out before the second movie comes out. This was a pretty good movie. Sure, there are a ton of flaws, but I had a lot of fun with it, and it's pretty suspenseful in some scenes, even if some of them don't make a lick of sense. The second movie I watched was The Fishman and Their Queen. This was the beyond cheesy sequel to the already cheesy Island of the Fishman, and, that's some bad dubbing. But I think this has a charm to it. It's really lighthearted and well-meaning in nature, so I think it gets a pass in my book, but it's still a pretty bad movie, and I would not recommend it to any modern mainstream moviegoer. It's pretty bad. The third movie I watched was The Grudge 2020. Wow. This was pretty bad. I saw this in theaters, and I did a From Reel to Wheel episode with my mama. We both had nitpicked the hell out of it. We were like, this could have gone this way, and it would have made just as much sense and been better several times in the video, and we were going on and on about it, so it was showing how unwell written this film was, and it should have had a few rewrites, or just not happened at all. The fourth movie I watched was Torso. Now, this is an early 70s giallo film from director Sergio Martino, and it's got a great climax. The rest of the film is pretty good, too. It is not the worst film out there. It is definitely a highbrow giallo flick, but I think it's needed a few things changed. I don't quite remember what. I'd have to go back into my notes, but it's still a great movie, and I'd highly recommend it. The fifth movie I watched was Mountain of the Cannibal God. Now, this is the second cannibal movie I've ever seen, the first one being Cannibal Holocaust, and I've gotta say, bravo. This is a great adventure movie with cool characters, cool settings, cool cannibals, but there is some very disturbing stuff in this movie, and it's hard to watch sometimes. The orgy scene in particular is pretty unsettling, as well as the actual animal killing. But I think this is a bit tamer than the usual cannibal fare. Not quite sure. I'd have to go watch more cannibal movies. The sixth movie I watched was Subspecies. The Night Has Fangs. I love this movie. It's a pretty original idea, and it's got its own charm, it's got its sequels, and I really appreciate this first film. Plus, Angus Scrimm in that wig, how could you not love it? Radu is an awesome vampire. I love his design, his voice, his mannerisms. It's just, he's so perfect in my eyes as a old, timely vampire. And it works, even on a low budget. The seventh movie I watched was Creature from Black Lake. I love this movie. It's a light-hearted, yet intense Bigfoot fare from the mid-70s. It wrote off the success of The Legend of Boggy Creek, as well as other miscellaneous Sasquatch movies. Now, this differs from them because it's not a docudrama. It's just a drama, thriller, horror, with some mild comedy. It's more in the writing than in the acts. It's really well written, I feel. It's got its own charm, and it's so nice to watch, and there are some startling scenes, too. I really enjoyed this movie. I always have, and I always will. The eighth movie I watched was The Evil Below. This was actually pretty good. It just has a lot of shortcomings. You could tell the effects and budget were really pulled back, and the film suffered greatly because of that. I enjoyed the characters and the adventure sequences. The horror sequences are pretty good too. I think this is a easy watch. It's not something that you have to really turn your brain on for. It's just relax, have a couple beers or have some popcorn, and just enjoy some evil blow. The 9th movie I watched was Underwater. I saw this a week late, thanks a lot, Obscure Media. I'm just kidding. But me and Obscure Media went to go see this movie, and we did a From Reel to Wheel episode on it, and I really enjoy this movie. The film was okay when I first saw it, but after a while it just grew on me, and I really, really enjoy it. It has some shortcomings, yes, but it's a great January horror movie in my eyes. Probably the best one of this year. And I've seen pretty much all the horror movies that are worth seeing in January of 2020, minus The Grudge. Well, I have seen The Grudge, I just don't think it's worth recommending. I haven't seen The Turning, or I think there was one other, but I heard those were terrible too. The 10th movie I watched was Candyman. Now, I saw this a long time ago as a kid, and I thought it was pretty good. Not the best movie ever. I watched it this time and I was like, perfect. This was really, really good. Not a perfect movie, mind you, but just perfectly executed. Tony Todd is amazing as the Candyman, and we have a great cast of characters, a cool story, very unsettling and disturbing, and I really liked it because of that. I think this movie was perfect for its time. The urban decay was really settling in the 90s, as well as fading out. So this was like the peak of the urban decay, and implementing that into film, really cool urban legend movie. The 11th movie I watched was Tremors. Now, I did a 30-year retrospective on this movie, which I wish turned out a bit better, but if you want to watch it, I'll leave a link to it up here, up on the top here, and you can let me know what you think of that video. This movie is great. It's very, very well done. It's actually kind of ahead of its time. It has such great effects. Even by like 3 years, this is ahead of its time. Because Jurassic Park came and stomped all over the rest of the films of special effects technology, besides like Star Wars and Blade Runner. This is like that sweet middle section of films in the 90s and 80s where it was like, holy crud, you can do this kind of stuff in movies and make it look good? Miniatures? It had a great cast of characters. Some went on into the series, some didn't, but I still think it's a really well done film and fun for the whole family, and it even feels like it's a family project, which really helps. The 12th movie I saw was, well, Saw. Now, I am so mad because my mom watched this movie with me, and she was flipping out the whole time, like, no way! What? No, seriously? I didn't get that on camera. Oh, man, that would have been great. But seeing her reaction to this first installment in the franchise was a welcome one, because she was evading these movies like crazy. And when they first started coming out, she's like, "Oh, there's nothing but gore films and really disgusting and disturbing." And that was my mom back then. Now she's like older and wiser, and she realizes, hey, this actually might be a good movie. And she was like, after it was over, turned to me. I was like, "What'd you give it out of 5?" 5? I was like, "Yeah, buddy." Saw is just, it's a really good movie. It has great performances for the most part. I mean, some of the performances are good up until certain points, but then they go back to being good. The twist is legendary. It keeps you on your toes throughout, and I really, really appreciate that. I don't think we'll get another movie quite like this for another 5-10 years, because this was a cultural phenomenon. The 13th movie I watched was Slash. I loved the main theme song way more than I loved the movie. The movie wasn't god-awful, it was actually pretty entertaining, but I think this film really suffered in some areas. Like, I liked the characters, but some of them were kind of annoying at first. But they grew on me, so that was good. The twist at the end was handled okay. I kind of figured, like, this person is acting way too calm, but the way they handle it is really well. Like, they paint him up to be the killer, then he's like, well, I was here the whole time. I'm like, and there's a new twist. So, pretty cool stuff. The 14th and final movie I watched in the month of January 2020, yes, I know, only 14 movies, come on, Brian. Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. This is an excellent fairy tale horror movie. The mayhem, carnage, acting, characters, music, everything just really flowed well, especially with the nice editing. I highly recommend you check out Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. And I do believe it's better than the new Gretel and Hansel, which I actually watched in February, so I can't count it on this list yet. But there's a hint for what I watched in February. Still, I highly recommend Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, and I'd say you should totally check it out. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and I am Brian Gatto, the Horror Show host. Make sure to like, comment on, as well as share this video. Like my Facebook fan page, and support me on Patreon. Even $1 a month will help keep this channel going on strong, and I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, hit that notification bell, and as always, subscribe.